The Chicago Bears just caught some massive breaks ahead of their Monday Night Football showdown with the Minnesota Vikings to open the 2025 season. And trust me, these breaks could change everything. Here's what went down. The Vikings shocked the NFL world with a surprising trade, and on top of that, their wide receiver room is way more banged up than people expected. That's not all. Rookie quarterback JJ McCarthy may already be in serious trouble. Stick with me because I'm about to break it all down. But before we jump into the latest updates, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to turn on the bell icon. That way, you'll always be the first to catch breaking Bears news. Alright, let's move on to the news story. So here's the big one. On August 20th, the Vikings traded away one of their strongest defensive linemen, Harrison Phillips, to the New York Jets. And get this, they didn't even get a player in return. Just a 6th-round pick in 2026 and a late pick swap in 2027. That's a head-scratcher, especially since Minnesota already lost some key talent on the defensive line last year. This trade weakens their run defense big time and gives the Bears a huge opening heading into Week 1. When you look at Minnesota's depth chart, the decision to move on from Harrison Phillips doesn't just raise eyebrows, it leaves a real hole in their defense. Phillips wasn't just another guy on the line. He was their anchor on the interior, the kind of player who could clog up the middle, pressure the quarterback, and set the tone in the locker room as a veteran leader. Losing him hurts in more ways than one. For the Bears, though, this is a golden opportunity. Chicago's offensive line, now strengthened with Drew Delman, Joe Thuney, and Jonah Jackson, no longer has to deal with Phillips crashing the middle. That's a huge sigh of relief, especially for a team that's been looking to open up more lanes for their backs. To give you an idea of what kind of player Phillips is, he's 6'3", 310 pounds, and has been a rock in the NFL since his time with Buffalo and Minnesota. Over 96 career games, he's piled up more than 300 tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 30 quarterback hits, and 8 sacks. That might not sound flashy on paper, but for a nose tackle, those numbers show just how disruptive he's been. Once he gets his hands on a runner, that play is over. Just last season, Phillips suited up for every single game. He racked up 56 tackles, added 2 sacks, and showed again why he was such a steady force for the Vikings' defense. And remember, this is the same defense that kept opposing teams on edge all year. So now with Phillips gone, the Bears running backs, especially DeAndre Swift, could suddenly have a little less weight on their shoulders. Fewer brick walls in the middle, more chances to break free. That's exactly why losing Harrison Phillips stings so much for Minnesota. He was their brick wall in the middle, the kind of player who forced defenses to think twice before running straight ahead. Without him, the Vikings' defensive line suddenly looks thin and honestly pretty vulnerable. Let's break it down. Jonathan Allen, their big offseason addition, is now expected to carry the load. But here's the concern. Allen hasn't played a full season in years. Last year with Washington, he managed just 18 tackles and 16 pressures. Not bad, but far from dominant. Now he's being asked to be Minnesota's #1 guy. Behind him, things don't look much better. Javon Hargrave only recorded 4 tackles and 8 pressures last season. Jalen Redmond showed flashes with 19 tackles and 3 pressures, but he's still not anywhere close to what Phillips brought. And Levi Drake Rodriguez, he finished last year with just 1 tackle, 0 pressures, and is already on the injury report heading into this season. That's not a rotation built to scare anyone, and for the Bears, that's great news. It opens the door for a more aggressive ground game, whether pounding it up the middle or bouncing runs outside. Chicago's offensive line will have far more freedom to dictate the play without a dominant interior defender standing in their way. And let's not forget the impact on Caleb Williams. Without Phillips collapsing the pocket and eating up blockers, it becomes much harder for the Vikings to disguise blitz or create pressure straight up the gut. For a rookie quarterback, that's a massive advantage. On paper, Minnesota looks confident in their group, but if you really study the numbers, this move feels like a gamble. And it's one that could backfire quickly. When this news first broke, even Vikings fans were left scratching their heads. Nobody really understood the move, and honestly, it only plays right into Chicago's hands. We already talked about how thin Minnesota looks on the defensive line, but the situation on offense might be even worse. Right now, the Vikings' wide receiver room is running on fumes. Jordan Addison is dealing with a suspension. 2 other receivers are already on the injury list, and Justin Jefferson just returned after being out for nearly a month. Minnesota expects him to be ready for Week 1, but even that comes with a huge question mark. According to reports, the Vikings are exploring the trade market for veteran wideouts because they know how shaky this position group looks. And here's the big concern: Jefferson has battled hamstring issues for the past couple of years. Anyone who's followed him knows these injuries don't just disappear. They linger, and even when he plays through them, they slow him down. Now, the Vikings will want their superstar on the field when the season kicks off. But with how long and brutal the NFC North race is shaping up to be, rushing him back could be risky. If Minnesota decides to push him too early, they might pay for it later in the season. And unfortunately for them, Jefferson's health isn't the only problem here. The rest of this wide receiver group is just as concerning, and that could spell real trouble against a Chicago secondary that's been looking sharper every week. If you haven't been following closely, here's the reality: Minnesota's wide receiver room is falling apart. First, Jordan Addison, Jefferson's partner in crime, is gone for the first 3 games. The NFL hit him with a suspension for violating the league's substance abuse policy. He's allowed to practice and play in the preseason, but once week 1 hits, he's out. And that's a big deal. Addison has been a consistent 700-plus yard receiver with the kind of speed that stretches defenses and puts points on the board. Losing him leaves a massive hole. Now add the Justin Jefferson situation. He's the superstar, of course, 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns last season, but that nagging hamstring issue means nothing is guaranteed. Even if he plays, the question is, can he play at 100%? But it doesn't stop there. Jalen Naylor, their next option, is also banged up. He's dealing with a knee injury and is questionable heading into the season. Last year, he gave the Vikings 400-plus yards and 6 touchdowns, a solid weapon in the slot, but he may not even be available against the Bears. And behind him, things get even shakier. Lucky Jackson is currently listed as wide receiver 4, but he has no NFL stats to his name. No one knows what to expect from him, and to make matters worse, the player they were hoping could provide depth, Rondale Moore, is out for the entire season after landing on injured reserve. So here's the picture: Minnesota's offense is relying almost entirely on Justin Jefferson, who isn't at full strength, and after that, they're down to question marks. Against a hungry Bears secondary that could spell disaster. Right now, the Vikings' situation at wide receiver is as thin as it gets. Some believe the Harrison Phillips trade was all about stockpiling draft picks so they could chase a veteran pass catcher, but as of now, nothing's materialized. And heading into week 1, that's a real problem. Meanwhile, Chicago's secondary is getting healthier at just the right time. Jalen Johnson is trending toward being ready for the opener, Kyler Gardner is back, and Tariq Stevenson is locked in. Add in Terrell Smith and even Nan Wright, a former Viking who has been standing out in camp, and this Bears defensive backfield is looking stacked. And here's the kicker: Wright isn't just depth, he's familiar with Minnesota's offense. He practiced against Justin Jefferson all last year. In fact, Jefferson specifically asked to go up against him because of how physical and sharp Wright played in practice. Now, if Jefferson ends up being Minnesota's only real weapon in week 1, that familiarity could give Chicago a major edge. So when you put it all together, a Vikings roster that's banged up, missing weapons, and thin in key spots versus a Bears team that's finally healthy and hungry, this matchup suddenly feels a lot different. The Bears may have caught some lucky breaks, but luck or not, they've got to capitalize. Week 1 is coming fast, and all eyes will be on this Monday Night Football showdown. One thing's for sure, it's going to set the tone for the rest of the season.